Dr. Guido's daily devotional, Seeds from the Sower. Write The Sower, Mentor, Georgia, 30439.
Visit us on the web at thesower.com.
VCY America presents Crosstalk, a nationwide call-in program discussing issues that have an effect on our families, our communities, our churches, our nation, and our world. Crosstalk, an opportunity for you to voice your concerns for biblical principles. And now live by satellite and around the world on the internet at vcyamerica.org. Here is today's Crosstalk.
And friends, thank you for joining us on Crosstalk. It was 3 months ago today that the war with Iran got underway. I mean, so much has transpired over this time. President Trump has a stated goal of removing the nuclear threat of Iran and sees no way for them to have the enriched uranium. Just yesterday, President Trump held a cabinet meeting at the White House and said Iran was negotiating on fumes. Well, in recent hours, news broke indicating that the United States and Iran negotiators have reached an agreement. Well, it's an agreement to a 60-day memorandum of understanding that extends the current ceasefire and also negotiations concerning Iran's nuclear program. This all awaits, we understand, the approval of President Trump. Also in recent news, the United States shot down Iranian drones near the Strait of Hormuz, and there was also a ballistic missile that Iran launched against Kuwait. The United States had to take defensive action. Is a diplomatic solution possible with Iran? I ask because even Mujtaba Khomeini, in a very fiery Hajj message, described Israel as a cancerous tumor nearing the final stages of its existence. And what's going on with Hamas? And what about Hezbollah? One individual, though, that's keeping his eye on the Middle East is with us today. His name is Chris Katulka, Vice President of North American Ministries at the Friends of Israel Gospel Ministry. He is host of the Friends of Israel Today radio program. Chris is a Bible teacher. He is a writer for Israel My Glory magazine, author of the book Israel Always. Chris, thank you for joining us here today on Crosstalk.
Jim, always great to be with you. Thanks for having me back.
So first, Chris, I think we got to get this established again. I know we've probably talked about this before, but do we know who is actually calling the shots for Iran? Is it the Iranian parliament? Is it the IRGC? Is it the Ayatollah? Who's in charge? Who are we negotiating with?
This is the endless question, and even the Trump administration is a bit tight-lipped on who they're talking to in order to make these peace agreements with, or these agreements about how they're going to deal with the nuclear dust, as President Trump likes to call it. I think they're being tight-lipped about it. President Trump he's an interesting character because in one side of his mouth he'll say things like, these people are done, and then the next one he'll say, we're working with good people over there. Mm-hmm. So you never really know exactly who's in charge. If Mujtaba Khomeini is still able to even have a thought in his mind and to speak it, he is speaking to a group of people from underground, and the question is even how they're communicating with one another, which definitely slows down the process for any of these peace talks. So who's in charge? I still think there's a question about that. And, we don't get much conversation about the inner workings of who wants to be in charge in Iran. Yes, everybody's looking to the Ayatollah, but in reality, there's probably many who are looking to say, I could be the next person in charge of Iran, and maybe they're the ones trying to call the shots. And as you've probably mentioned to your listeners in the past, Iran has a structure of leadership that's fascinating. It all routes up to the top with the Ayatollah, but in cases of emergency, like what they're dealing with right now, they're okay to really dismantle their leadership into certain regions. So regional leadership is making calls for how they should push back against the United States or push back against Israel. So again, that creates problems because even though the Ayatollah or whoever's in charge might be making some diplomatic relationship with the United States to make a peace agreement, they don't know if that's being communicated down to these regional leaders and the implementation they have to defend their country. So it's a lot of uncertainty as to actually who's in charge in Iran right now.
And I think it's an important question here as it relates to are we negotiating with somebody who really does not have the authority or the power? And so in one breath we have a peace agreement, next breath there's a missile coming over. And just about the Ayatollah for a moment here, Chris. I mean, as I mentioned, he called Israel just recently a cancerous tumor. And I saw an article in the Washington Stand that said that he has issued a directive that the country's near weapons-grade uranium should not be sent abroad, something that is a red line for President Trump as well. And do we know, does he hold any sway in Iran any longer? Is he is he even around? I mean, nobody has seen him. Is there a proxy making these statements, making us think that they come from him?
Again, you're asking a question that I think a lot of us are anxious to find out. I will say, it doesn't surprise me, Jim, that he's saying these very anti-Israel sentiments. He carries them forward from his grandfather and his father into, even if he's alive, into his broken administration, that their goal, their stated goal as a nation is to eliminate Israel.
Yes.
You would think at this point, when your country's been absolutely demolished from, your economy is demolished, your military is demolished, even your ability to manufacture military, all the manufacturing, all of it, it's been demolished. And you would think that finally you would say, all right, let's move in a different direction for survival's sake. No, they keep to their mission, even to the point where they have been saying to President Trump in these negotiations, hey, look, we don't want Israel fighting with Hezbollah. Like as if Hezbollah is on the table for them, and Trump is telling them Hezbollah is not on the table for you. You need to worry about yourself. Mm-hmm. Well, that's the problem. You can't This is why I think Netanyahu in Israel, Jim, is so bent on making sure that Americans understand that the only way to fix the Iranian problem is regime change, period. Mm-hmm. And again, because as you're seeing, even from the bunkers of Tehran, with injured Ayatollah, if he's still alive, he's still calling Israel a cancerous regime that needs to be rooted out. Look, even with the JCPOA that Obama put forward many, many years ago, the Iran deal, that never actually solved the problem. The reason we could never trust Iran is because they are bent on destroying Israel and America. This is who they are. You can't eliminate nuclear weapons and think that their behavior is going to change. The only way to change their behavior is regime change. And I think Trump is positioning them for regime change. I actually believe that. It might not seem like it, but in their weakened state, I think at some point something's going to happen. Something's going to break. We've underestimated still those 90% of Iranians who dislike or don't agree with the Ayatollahs or the Islamic regime. So we still haven't heard from them yet, which will be interesting in the coming months.
And on that issue, Chris, there are some that are promoting the idea or the thought that President Trump has betrayed the Iranian people who are, wanting this freedom from an oppressive government. Any thoughts on that?
Personally, I think Trump is trying to balance the situation between the Iranians and the Americans. Look, the only way to enact real regime change in Iran is for American boots on the ground. Trump's not going to go in that direction. He doesn't want a forever war. Mm-hmm. At the same time, he has demolished Iran to the point where I believe if the right people are put in place, there could be a revolution in Iran at some point. Nobody's really talking about that. Again, we've talked in the past about Reza Pahlavi, the exiled crown prince. He's still working behind the scenes on regime change in his country. The question is, we've been so focused on the Strait of Hormuz. We've been so focused on making sure we get the nuclear dust taken care of, as Trump calls it. I think we've lost focus of the Iranian people and their capability of rising up in this moment of great weakness for their country. They haven't been called to action yet. That's a big thing. In fact, I think they've been told, stay put and wait for the right time. So that's why I haven't pushed the Iranian people aside. I still believe these people are ready for freedom and they want it, and their state is at a point where I think it's ready for them to rise up. But I think it has to happen at the right time, which I think is very important. Chris
Katalka with us today from the Friends of Israel Gospel Ministry. So, Chris, what are we to know about this breaking news here of this, supposed 90-day peace agreement proposal? Any details coming out regarding this?
It's the same as it's been in the past. that there's agreement between the Trump administration with Secretary Rubio leading the charge there. I don't know if you saw the other day when he had his cabinet meeting. He had the Secretary of War on his one side and his Secretary of State on the other side to kind of show on his right and on his left he's got power to destroy Iran, but he's also got the diplomacy at his hands to create some type of agreement with them. I don't know what's in that deal per se, but I can guarantee you this: it has to do with nuclear. It has to do with nuclear. It has to do with the fact there's not going to be any sanctions. I think they're looking for America to rebuild Iran. That's not going to happen either. So I think Trump is going to wait. He'll wait it out. By now, I actually have been thinking that Trump would have pushed a little bit harder for this, knowing that the midterms are around the corner. I don't think he feels stressed about that at all, Jim. I don't know what your thoughts are on it.
Yeah.
I think he's being as patient as he possibly can to corner them into making the deal that he wants.
Yeah, and I think what he's doing, Chris, he's trying to look at not just the immediate, but the big picture here. And one article I came across this morning indicated that concerning the midterms, that's really a side issue for him. His most important aspect is not to have a nuclear Iran. And he is not going to make his a political decision as much as he is what is right to be taking place here. And if this would all come about in this regard, Chris, can Israel be happy with such a deal like this?
I think Trump's going to free Israel in a positive way here. Look, this has been a joint effort between Israel and America in trying to enact the getting rid of the nuclear ambition of Iran. But I also think that's not going to stop Trump from – I don't think Trump's going to stop Netanyahu at any point in the future if there's continual threats coming against Israel. Many weeks ago, Axios produced a piece, Jim, that said, Trump has an end in mind for this Iranian war, but Netanyahu is okay with living in the chaos. And I kind of chuckled at that because only a Westerner would write that. See, we don't live with the daily threats of Iran, and our country isn't under an existential threat like Israel is with Iran. Iran has positioned Hezbollah, the Houthis, and Hamas surrounding Israel to constantly pressure them, and this is what they invest in. This is what they invest their money in, is pressuring Israel, terrorism, and these proxies that surround Israel. Israel's been living in the chaos forever. So, of course, they're comfortable with living in the chaos to enact what they want to see, which is regime change. Trump wants to see the nuclear ambition taken care of. And when he leaves, I don't think Trump is going to put necessarily a leash on Israel like past administrations has. So I think Trump understands from great information from not just Netanyahu, but the Israeli security, from Israeli intelligence, that Israel lives in a state of chaos all the time. If you're surrounded by your enemies, I think America would speak up if you were surrounded by your enemies who were constantly attacking you. Israel lives in that chaos, and I actually believe that Israel is going to make sure that it continues to protect itself because it's gone from the defense to the offense in the last 3 years.
Friends, we're going to take a break here. We're speaking with Chris Katolka from the Friends of Israel Gospel Ministry. He's Vice President of North American Ministries there. And after the break, we're going to come back and learn about other things that are all going on simultaneously with this deal negotiations back and forth, including things such as expanded Abraham Accords, such as what's going on with Hezbollah, what's going on with Hamas. So we've got much to unfold here this hour. You're listening to Crosstalk coming your way from the VCY American Network. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Back to Genesis with Dr. John Morris, scientist and creation researcher with the Institute for Creation Research. Dr. Morris, when we look at humanity, where did all the different skin colors come from?
Chris, of course, all our traits are controlled by our genes, and they've always been quite mysterious. Now, as the human genome has been decoded, the mystery of the origin of skin color has not been solved. We can't figure out what controls the genes. Evidently, there's something behind the genes that turns them on and off and controls how long they operate. Here at the Institute for Creation Research, we're researching this, and I predict that many of these plaguing problems will soon be solved. One thing for certain, it won't be solved by claiming the genes randomly mutated. They were created by an intelligent designer, the designer that's mentioned back in Genesis.
To find out more about creation science, visit us on the web at www.icr.org. That's www.icr.org.
Keeping an eye on the Middle East is our topic today. Chris Katulka with us from the Friends of Israel Gospel Ministry, and unfolding so much that's happening very quickly in the Middle East. Before we continue on, Chris, you are regularly, through your ministry, engaged in informing the people not only on, current events and matters that are unfolding there, but also on the history of Israel, why Israel matters, proper biblical interpretation of matters pertaining to Israel, etc., in your magazine called Israel, My Glory. And so much more than what I've just stated there. But give us an overview of that magazine and how our listeners can obtain a copy.
Yeah, Israel, My Glory has been a magazine that's been in publication since 1942. It's a trustworthy magazine that teaches biblical truth about Israel and the Jewish people, especially in the age that we live in. If you think about Israel, My Glory came out of the Holocaust. It was developed out of the Holocaust and the realization of what it means to bless the Jewish people out of the ashes that they came from. Well, here we are once again dealing with an issue of anti-Semitism, the hatred of Jewish people globally. So now more than ever, I think Christians need to be attuned to what God says about the issue, and that's what Israel, My Glory is all about. It's looking at Israel and the Jewish people from a biblical perspective, a biblical worldview, helping you give a really great lens into the Middle East and asking some of those tough questions that people are talking about, but not from a media perspective, but from a biblical perspective. So if your listeners would like a free one-year subscription to our award-winning magazine, they can call our listener line. That's 800-257-7843.
And friends, you can call that number and just request that free one-year subscription. It comes out every 2 months, so that would be like 6 issues of the magazine for over a period of 12 months. Again, you can just mention, I heard Chris on Crosstalk today. He offered your magazine, and I'd like to get that free one-year subscription. The number again, 1-800-257-7843. 1-800-257-7843. Chris, during this time of conflict, of course, with Iran, President Trump has been really urging Arab and Muslim nations to join in expanded Abraham Accords. I mean, he's calling on people like in countries like Bahrain and Pakistan, Egypt, Jordan, Turkey, and others to join him. Talk about these Abraham Accords and what is his strategy behind this?
Yeah, I think this is so fascinating that Trump would do this. You know, in the midst of trying to make a deal with Iran, which has proved to be not difficult, but certainly more time-consuming than he thought it might have been, here in the middle of all of it, as he's making this deal, he basically looks at countries like Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Pakistan, who are all playing a deep role in these negotiations, and he says, hey, look, there's going to be no deal if you guys don't join the Abraham Accords. Not even like a, hey, you should think about it. He basically leveraged this opportunity to tell them you need to join these Abraham Accords that he developed during his first administration. So if you go back to his first administration at the very end, which I have to say President Trump got zero credit for at all. I mean, he made Middle East peace between Israel, many of the Gulf countries like UAE and Bahrain, Oman, Morocco. All of these countries were coming into this peace agreement, and the guy got no credit whatsoever for it, or a Nobel Peace Prize, which he should have received for that. I believe he should have gotten that. Well, now he's leveraging these accords, these diplomatic accords between Israel and these their Arab neighbors. And he's saying, I want you, if you're going to make a deal, to join the Abraham Accords. And I believe he's doing this on purpose. Look, after World War II, NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, was formed in order to protect Europe and the United States from the aggression of Russia. And as you can see, if you've been keeping up with the news, Trump's not too happy with NATO because it's not living up to the standards of actually defending itself against Russian aggression. And he's not happy with the way they pay into it, the whole 9 yards. I believe he's trying to form a version of NATO in the Middle East. I really do believe that President Trump believes that the Middle East could be a powerhouse economically in the world. I sat a couple of years ago, I was at the President of Israel's home with a group of people, and it was at that time it was President Reuven Rivlin of Israel. He was a president before the one that's there today. And he had somebody come in and talk about what the Middle East could be economically if actually there were peace among these countries. Well, I think Trump sees that. And I think Trump knows the potential of the Middle East. And I think Trump is also saying you all need to get control of the radical components of your region of the world because they're spilling out into other areas. So, number one, you got to get control of that. You got to join together. And that also means joining together with one of the number one countries of the Middle East, and that's Israel, because they're going to have to work together. Just as NATO was supposed to work together to push back Russian aggression and to protect themselves, I believe Trump is saying the same thing about the Abraham Accords. You all need to learn to work together because I don't think Iran's going to change overnight. But you're going to have to work together to put Iran in its place so that it doesn't become that constant threat. It's not just Israel that deals with Iran, Jim. You know that. Lebanon deals with Iran, with Hezbollah.
Right.
Syria deals with Iran. Jordan has to deal with Iran. They don't like Iran. And so they're saying, I think he's saying, you all need to work together to curb this problem and push them back and not just wait for us to come in to fix the problem. So I think his leverage, it's a bold one. It's really bold. He's tackling a lot of problems at the same time. But I also think he's trying to set up a future for the Middle East as well.
Wow, that really is a mouthful, Chris, when you contemplate all that is going on simultaneously with the negotiations with Iran, because when you talk about Hamas, I mean, that is Iran. When you talk about Hezbollah, that is Iran as well, and all of these proxies for Iran. And I understand some of their resources are drying up because Iran's not been so plentiful in supplying them?
Yeah, 100. I mean, you mean the resources for the Middle East, or resources for who?
Resources for Hamas and Hezbollah to launch attack against Israel.
Yeah, I apologize. Yeah, 100%. Hamas is still in control. In fact, I like to tell people, Hamas has been significantly shrunk and pushed back and suppressed by Israel. But at the same time, I think it's important to know that that doesn't mean they're dead. In fact, Hamas still has control over an area. They are not receiving the funds they used to, like Hezbollah, but they are receiving instruction still. They still rely on Iran for direction. And I personally believe, according to the polls, Hamas still has a lot of influence, Jim, in Gaza, and Hamas still has a lot of influence in the West Bank. And Hezbollah still has a lot of influence, as much as I believe the Lebanese are trying to rise up to push back Hamas or Hezbollah. I believe even Hezbollah still has a lot of influence. So, just because the head of the snake is losing its impact, it doesn't mean, though, that the Hezbollah and Hamas still don't have regional power over these areas. It's a very interesting thing to see, but they still play a major role in terrorism toward Israel. That's why Israel is moving into Lebanon as we speak right now and still present in Gaza as we speak.
So let's talk about these two areas here momentarily. I mean, while this has been going on, reported that the border battles are heating up between Israel and Hezbollah. So give us a brief encapsulation of what's happening there.
Yeah, it should be noted that the United Nations made a resolution that Hezbollah was not allowed below the Litani River, which is a little bit north of the border between Israel and Lebanon. But they've been down there breaking that UN resolution without any consequence for years. So what's happening is Hezbollah continues to launch drones and rockets into northern Israel. And Israel, instead of kind of just responding in kind, are actually going into southern Israel and even up into Beirut. Which is their major city, to root out the leadership that are up there. This is putting Lebanon in a very tough position. And honestly, I've never seen the Lebanese leadership as bold as it is right now. Israel, again, because Israel is not on the offense, but on the defense, but now moving into the offense since October 7th. You're seeing a different Middle East because of that. A lot of people are looking and saying, look, Israel's the problem with the Middle East. Look, they're causing all this trouble. No, they're actually just responding now after decades of being tortured for decades. They're finally responding and punching back. And this is actually creating an environment where the Lebanese leadership have to say, we need to work to root out the Hezbollah. We've got to take control of our country. Because Hezbollah, Jim, is the mafia. Hezbollah has come down from Iran into Lebanon and not only created a militia in Lebanon, but it's also worked its way into politics as well. And a lot of the Lebanese Christians, which, remember, Lebanon was founded as an Arab Christian country, many of the Christians don't like Hezbollah, and they're happy that Israel's coming in and pushing it back, their influence in the region. And finally, the leadership of Lebanon is stepping up and saying, we need to take action as well. They haven't taken action out of fear. And now, because of the suppression of Iran, because of the U.S. and Israel, I believe now the Lebanese leadership are getting more bold about their stance against Hezbollah in the region. So this also requires, if you notice, it requires Israel to act. The Lebanese army has Hezbollah in it, so they can't even really do anything. Who is the only people that are able to defend the Lebanese from Hezbollah? It's Israel. So, but again, when the world sees Israel defending Lebanon, the Lebanese people against a terrorist organization, what happens? They look at it as if it's Israeli aggression against Lebanon. No, it's Israeli aggression against Hezbollah, a terrorist organization.
And Chris, as we pointed out, too, it's not only Hezbollah, but as you mentioned, things are still happening with Hamas. I mean, just yesterday it was reported in the Epoch Times that the Israeli military said it killed Mohammed Oda. This would be Hamas's newly appointed military chief. They took out the other military chief, and now they appointed somebody new, and they've taken him out in an airstrike in Gaza. That's remarkable as well.
Yeah, Jim, would you take the baton if
I am not volunteering.
The leadership there?
No volunteering for me.
That's right. Don't be surprised. This is, again, there is supposedly a ceasefire that's still existing between Israel and Gaza, and Hamas, but there have been back and forth between the two of them, and Israel is not going to allow Hamas leadership to rise up. They will constantly go after this, and they have intelligence on the ground. They have the right information to know who these people are, when they rise up, and how to take them out. You know, if I can say this too, because I've noticed this on social media. There's so many critics of Israel now and their action in Gaza toward Hamas, and they'll show before and after pictures. You know, the thing that's not being told as Israel goes in to defeat Hamas was living in homes. Hamas was operating out of tunnels that were under homes. Hamas was in mosques and schools and hospitals, breaking every Geneva Convention rule you could possibly imagine, even taking hostages and burying them underground, the Israeli hostages. And yet what's interesting is the reason why Israel had to destroy all those homes is because that's where Hamas was operating. They were using homes as military bases. And again, the problem is that social media only posts a picture but gives no context to the picture whatsoever.
Right.
And what do they call it then? They don't even look at the facts or the numbers of the people that have survived in Hamas or with Gaza. They just look at the pictures and scream genocide.
Right. Israel, they say, is committing genocide. Chris Katulka with us. Friends, if you missed that number for obtaining Israel My Glory magazine, be ready to jot it down after the break, including another special opportunity to receive some I Love Israel stickers as well. We'll give you information on that after the break. You're listening to Crosstalk on VCY America.
In the Bible, the Apostle Paul, in his letter to the Romans, tells us that he did the things that he didn't want to do and didn't do the things he wanted to do. Maybe you can relate with a stubborn habit. Dr. Erwin Lutzer wants you to find lasting biblical transformation with his book, How to Say No to a Stubborn Habit, which is 50% off this month at the VCY Bookstore and Outreach Center. Learn the 3 essential ground rules you must accept to truly change. Discover the secret to doing away with tempting thoughts, and see for yourself the roles of God, Satan, and your loved ones in your success or failure. Lutzer's book, How to Say No to a Stubborn Habit, is 50% off through May 31st, only at the VCY Bookstore and Outreach Center. You can order by calling 888-722-4829 or by shopping online at vcy.com. 888-722-4829 or visit vcy.com today.
The program is called Crosstalk. It comes your way each weekday afternoon at the same time over the VCY American Network. With us today and keeping an eye on the Middle East is Chris Katulka, Vice President of North American Ministries. And friends, he mentioned if you'd like to obtain a free one-year subscription to Israel My Glory magazine, all you need to do is reach out to them. It comes out every 2 months, and for 1 year you'll receive that free subscription. You just need to call 1-800-257-7843. That's 1-800-257-7843. Now, Chris, when you've been with us before, too, you've offered some I Love Israel stickers. I know many of our listeners had taken advantage of those. You still have some supply?
Oh, I've got supply. I'm happy to give them out. Jim, we actually, with everything going on with Israel in the world and the Jewish people and the rise of anti-Semitism, we've decided to really angle ourselves with these stickers and kind of have a campaign, which is Stick with Israel. And the best way that you can stick with Israel is really simple. It's to make a declaration that you support Israel and the Jewish people, and you can do that with something as simple as a sticker. We have stickers that say, I love Israel, or pray for the peace of Jerusalem, or Israel forever, all biblical phrases. And so if you text me, it's a text number, 424-444-1948. I'm going to send you 50 stickers that you can hand out, pass out, bring to your church. And you can stick these things on your water bottles, your Bibles, your cell phones, your laptops. I've seen them on hard hats, Jim, back of cars. We had a young woman go to Italy with a Jewish group, a Christian young woman go with a Jewish group over there to learn about Jewish persecution in Italy. And so much anti-Semitism in Rome. Free Palestine stickers, graffiti, free Gaza. And you know what she did? She took a bunch of stickers, and over the free Palestine stickers, she said, God loves Israel, or I love Israel, pray for the peace of Jerusalem. So it's just a way to push back against the hatred and to show the love of God. Because remember, God loves Israel and the Jewish people. It's a sign of his faithfulness to us as well. So, again, 424-444-1948.
And do they text anything in particular, or just they just send something to that number?
You can just write stickers, and I'll get a link to you. I'll text a link back to you right away.
Great. Okay. Again, just put that word stickers and send it to 424-444-1948, and Chris will send you the link so that you can request these and have a supply come to you, not only that you can don yourself on various items, but to share with others as well. Take them to church, put them on your literature table or whatever it may be to help share that message with others. Again, 424-444-1948. Just text the word stickers there. Chris, you brought up this matter of anti-Semitism, and so many states are going through the winnowing down of candidates right now. And frankly, it's been horrifying to see some of the very strong anti-Semitic remarks that some of these political candidates around the country are making.
No, in fact, I listened to a Israeli journalist who writes for Barry Weiss's Free Press, and his name's Haviv Reddick Gur. I encourage your listeners to listen to him. He has a good podcast, too, called Ask Haviv Anything. And he understands Israeli history really well as an Israeli, but he's also really grounded in American history. And he has a theory that the Democratic Party is going to angle itself on a talking point for 2028. And that's going to be basically, I'll use the phrase anti-Israel, but they would argue it's normalizing Israel. And you could hear it even recently. Rahm Emanuel, if you know that name, he was the mayor of Chicago. He was Obama's chief of staff. He could be a potential a candidate for president for the Democratic Party in 2028. He's kind of angling himself that way. He was on Bill Maher recently, and he was saying that Rahm Emanuel was saying we need to normalize relationships with Israel, not make them a special country, but normalize, which means we're not going to sell them military stuff. We're not going to treat them differently than any other country. Now, that doesn't sound too crazy, but it's just a friendly way of saying we're not going to look at Israel the same that we used to. And this is coming from somebody who actually was a huge supporter of Israel in his political career. He's the one who helped develop the Iron Dome system and to fund the Iron Dome system during the Obama administration. So you can even hear from the more moderate voices of the Democratic Party that you have this talking point that's building up from politicians like Ro Khanna in California to senators who are all angling themselves in the Democratic Party to say, you know what, we're not going to treat Israel the same way we used to anymore. And some of them, like Ro Khanna, even calling them a genocidal state. I'm telling you that we're getting to an interesting point, and if that's going to be their talking point, this will be a good barometer for America. Because if America takes to that talking point, then we can see what direction our country's going in. But if they push back against it, then we can see that actually maybe level heads will prevail here, and we'll be able to see that America still believes Israel should be in a special status because of the unique relationship that we've had ever since its founding in 1948.
And what's so interesting about that, Chris, I just heard an audio clip the other day, and I don't know if it was an Islamic cleric or somebody within Islam itself just talking and just uplifting people like Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens and others in the discord that they're causing the division and how that's working to their benefit for this cause of Islam.
Yeah, you're hearing it from podcasters. And even more moderate podcasters, you can hear them using Israel as an opportunity. Quite honestly, I think they're all, I mean this kindly, I think they're all grifters. They gravitate to this because it benefits them. It helps create the conversation, and Israel is just something that everybody gets attracted to. So if you criticize Israel, guess what's going to happen, Jim? I'm going to log on and watch it, and I disagree with them. And then maybe there's somebody that has no say in the game, and they're going to watch them. And then there's somebody who adamantly hates Israel, and they're going to watch them and agree with them. And you know what happens? It creates an environment where everybody just gets clicks. And I'm seeing this happen more and more, not just to the people like Tucker Carlson used to support Israel. Candace Owens used to support Israel. And now all of a sudden they've moved themselves into this realm of not just anti-Israel sentiment, but I believe anti-Israel, anti-Zionism. Jim, it always leads to anti-Semitism, the hatred of the Jewish people. I see it as one and the same anymore. It's an incredibly important thing to understand. There was a man named David Bar-Ilan, an Israeli, who many years ago actually said that Israel is the Jew of the world. That's a very important phrase. Israel is the Jew of the world. So what he's trying to say there, David Bar-Ilan, is that when you criticize Israel or you say I'm anti-Israel or I don't like Israel or I'm anti-Zionist, you can't help but say I'm anti-Jewish because it's a Jewish state. And so, again, you're seeing this happen over and over again, not just with podcasters, but now it's working its way even into the moderate voices of the Democratic Party and even areas of, I hate to say, the conservative movement as well. So we have to be very careful. I think the Republicans have done a better job, thanks to Donald Trump, who have actually spoken up against Tucker Carlson, spoken up against Candace Owens, and said this is foolish talk. It does not belong in our party. There's nobody in the Democratic Party that has spoken up against these radical voices against Israel.
Friends, our phone number to Crosstalk today, if you have a question you'd like to ask Chris Katulka, or if you have a brief comment, our number 1-800-733-9829. 1-800-733-9829. Chris, I know there's many other things we could talk about, but let me just bring up the Strait of Hormuz. I know President Trump has just said, he was asked the question, who should control this? He said it should be open. No one should be controlling it. And yet we see the very pressure cooker that the Strait of Hormuz is, and ships getting in and out, and the free flow of oil. We've seen what has happened to oil prices around the world as well. Your comments on what we are presently seeing in the Strait of Hormuz, and will we see that free flow happen again?
I do think the free flow of trade will happen again, or passage. And I think ships have been passing through. That's important, and I don't think it gets documented. Ships have been passing through, not at the rate that they were prior to Iran doing its best to shut it down. I believe that this is an opportunity, again, when President Trump put the blockade up against entering into the Strait of Hormuz, no one can get in and get out without their permission. I think this put Iran, in notice, on notice. That really it's America that's controlling even the Strait of Hormuz right now. If you think about it, they control what goes in and goes out of the Persian Gulf and even up into the Strait of Hormuz. So the question is, what kind of the ships can pass through. The problem is that I believe a lot of the companies that run these ships are nervous about what's going to happen if they send their ships through the Strait of Hormuz. Remember, this isn't a big military fleet, Navy fleet that the Iranians have. We're down to these little tiny boats. But the question is that Iran has. The question is they don't know what these, basically pirates are going to do, these Iranian pirates on their little boats, what mines are out there. So the bigger question is the insurance of carrying those big freighters that are carrying millions of dollars worth of oil or goods, fertilizer, coming through the Strait of Hormuz. They could get through, but they're unsure of whether or not there will be trouble, which again becomes an insurance problem. So again, I think that there's a lot of fear about the Strait of Hormuz. There are ships that are passing through. But eventually, I think it's going to let up once if an agreement is made, and I do think America will patrol it for free passage.
Okay, let's go to the phone lines here. Fort Worth, Texas. Caller, go ahead. You're on the air. Yeah, is this caller? Go ahead. You're on the air.
Hi, you talking to me?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. My name is Jim. Thanks for taking my call.
Okay. Sorry about
Chris,
that.
I just want to thank you for what you do with Israel, My Glory. And I've been getting the magazine for a few years. And anybody out there with this free offer ought to jump on it right away. It's a great magazine. I love all the writers and the stories and everything. My question is, Chris, can you recommend a newspaper or a magazine other than yours that gives the news of Israel that's not liberal, tells the truth? And that's my question.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's a really great question. I actually get this a lot. The best part about being online now is you can get international news pretty easily. And I believe that the Jerusalem Post does a very good job of presenting the views of what's going on in Israel and in the Middle East. That's a more moderate-leaning right newspaper that I believe does better fact-finding journalism that can help you understand what's going on with some good opinion pieces as well. If, center-leaning left is the Times of Israel. And so, again, they have good articles as well, good information, but they're kind of the center-leaning left. And so I would say the Jerusalem Post is one I often go to check, and there's other really good ones, but if you want the kind of the piece that the Israelis are going to, it's going to be the Jerusalem Post, or what we would have over here in the United States, which is called YNet News, which is another good one as well.
Okay, thank you for the call. We'll be back in 1 minute. Chris Katulka is with us here on Crosstalk. And he mentioned the Israel My Glory magazine, and you can subscribe, get a free one-year subscription, 800-257-7843. We'll be back in 1 minute here on Crosstalk on the VCY American Network.
For the Worldview Report, I'm Brandon House. Our website's worldviewtube.com. Recently, Elon Musk, he compared some of Neuralink's medical technology to, quote, Jesus-level technologies, end quote. That was during a virtual appearance at the Samson International Smart Mobility Summit in Tel Aviv. He said so because they have helped paralyzed people regain communication and mobility, or some to be able to restore their sight. Well, here's the problem, Elon. Jesus did not have to rely upon any technology, and they were healed 100%, not partially. Isn't it interesting? The technocrats, the transhumanists, they keep telling us about Jesus-level technologies or powers. Some of them brag they're creating an AI God. I don't know about you, but this seems, again, to be setting the culture for a false prophet and the Antichrist and an image in the temple.
And friends, just a reminder, too, if you'd like those I Love Israel stickers or stickers in support of Israel that you can hand out to others, just text the word stickers to 424-444-1948. That's 424-444-1948. Chris Katulka with us today. Lines are packed. Robert is calling from Phoenix. And Robert, you're on the air.
Yeah, hi. How you doing? Thank you for taking my call. Listen, I've been listening to your program now for a couple of months, and I hear a lot of communist propaganda, anti-Christ stuff going on there.
What give me an instant. What have we said here?
Okay, he's supporting Donald Trump right now, this guy. And Donald Trump's been convicted of 24 felony convictions. We might as well let's
talk about Robert. Let's talk about the issue today. Robert, let's talk about the issue today pertaining to Israel and President Trump's stance toward Israel.
Yeah, ain't Trump coming on to the American scene, to the American public who are Christian, and saying, let's pray at 12 or at 6. Yeah, and the issue today is no prayer, no Christ.
Okay, well, we advocate as praying for the peace of Jerusalem here, Robert, and I don't know what all you're listening to, but I will tell you this, that it is not communist propaganda, Chris, to stand in support of Israel, as Robert is suggesting here.
No, in fact, a little history on Israel. They had an opportunity to move toward the east and go toward the communist way of life. And actually, Russia thought they would do that. That's why they buddied up to Israel early on. But instead, they chose the West. They chose democracy. They chose capitalism. And that's why you see Israel growing like no other country in the Middle East, because instead of siding with Russia like most Arab countries did, they sided with America. And so, and again, I'm not trying to promote Trump. I'm just calling out what his policies are and how they affect not only the American people, but also how they've been affecting Israel as well.
Thank you, Robert, for your thoughts. Faith is next in Pennsylvania. You're on the air.
Hi. Hey, I understand. I think people should understand the promises of God to Israel. And I know that Chris has talked about that a lot. These negative people don't really trust the Bible in that sense. Mm-hmm. I am glad for Chris. He kind of brings us back to who we can trust, and I think he has a good understanding of things. Also, we think of King Cyrus and Nebuchadnezzar. I mean, there are proud leaders of our country, but look at what God did with them. At least Nebuchadnezzar made him eat grass and all that. But
okay.
I think Highway 53, it seems like that's a good site to see what Messianic Jews are doing, interviewing people in Israel.
Okay.
So anyway, thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Faith, for the call and supportive, Chris, of the comments that you've had here.
Yeah, Jim, can I say something, too, about what Faith said? I think
Sure.
She said something very interesting, and I hear Christians criticizing Israel a lot, which does break my heart, and I think it breaks Faith's heart and maybe some of your listeners as well. As Christians are saying, look, Israel's a secular state. Why are we supporting them? We shouldn't be. I think Faith nailed it there when she brought up Cyrus the Great. When Cyrus gave the permission for the Jewish people to return, God anointed that man to do that. God was the one that instructed a pagan king to do what his will was, to return his people. And his people didn't come back and the kingdom was restored. No, it was kind of small. It was a feeble. They had enemies. They were pushing them back. They lost their way. But then eventually what happened after 400 years, the Messiah did come. Why is it any different than what we see today? Truman and the world gave permission for the Jewish people to return to their ancient homeland in 1947 and 1948. And here we are. It almost seems like what we're seeing from thousands of years ago taking place right before our very eyes. Does that mean God's done with Israel? No way. Faith is spot on. It's biblical. God is at work because God is faithful to his people. And if I believe God's faithful to me as a believer in the Lord Jesus, then guess what? God's got to be faithful to a covenant, because he's a covenant-keeping God, to the covenant that he made to Abraham. I will give you a land, descendants, and a blessing, and through you, Abraham, all the families of the earth will be blessed.
Amen. Amen. Thank you for the call. Let's go to Tom in Virginia, Minnesota. Tom, you're on the air.
Yes. Hi, Chris and Jim. A couple of questions for you, Chris. One is, any updates on what is going on with the Syrian government in El Jalani there? In regards to Israel, and also, do you ever collaborate with other Jewish ministries like Chosen People or Jews for Jesus? And
okay.
I'll hang up and listen to you. Thanks.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. I was just in an email conversation with a brother from Chosen Peoples. We love our friends who are doing the same ministry and ministering to our Jewish friends, showing them the love and compassion of the Lord Jesus. At the same time, what's going on in Syria is very difficult, and as you can see, there are Christians that are being persecuted in Syria, and I believe there's a pressure that Jelani feels toward America right now to try to live up to some standard in relationship with Israel. So the question is how that will play out in the future. I haven't seen much quite yet, but it has been a bit quiet on the border since then between Israel and Syria.
Thank you for the call. And very quickly from Mark in Tucson, Arizona, you're on the air.
My question is this, pertaining to Iran, is there any behind-the-scene involvement with Vladimir Putin as of now? I haven't heard much said about him, but kind of pertaining to the future prophecy involving Magog, okay. I thought maybe he might... have something going on right now.
Okay, thanks, Mark. Chris, you've got 30 seconds. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll just say this. I think that Putin is got a lot of pressure himself right now, as Ukraine has shown the world that they can actually defend themselves. And I think Putin's under a lot of pressure and doesn't have time for Iran. You know, something we didn't talk about, though, is China's influence with Iran and trying to get them to cut a deal with America as well. So I believe that alliance is still there. China, Russia, Turkey and Iran, it's still there, but I don't think Iran is finding any friends with them right now. They're not going to act in any way. In fact, I think they want them to go back to status quo, if anything.
Chris Katulka, our guest. Chris, as always, thank you for carving out the hour and joining our listeners today.
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate it.
And friends, for the Israel My Glory magazine, you can reach out to them, 1-800-257-7843. Ask for that free one-year subscription. And for those stickers in support of Israel, just text the word stickers to 424-444-1948 as we remind you to pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Thanks for listening.
You've been listening to Crosstalk via satellite and the internet from VCY America. Views expressed may or may not be those of this station. For a CD of today's program, send a donation of $6 or more to VCY Take Ministry, 3434 West Kilbourne Avenue, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 53208, or download by RSS or podcast from crosstalkamerica.com. And join us again for Crosstalk.